I'm telling you, this jobs report is significant. It's going to amp up pressure politically to make a move. There's going to be pressure from all angles.
If you're not getting educated about local and national real estate market conditions, industry news, lawsuits, you name it, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers Podcast. I'm Tom Toole here with Lisa Chinatti and Byron Lazine, and we're going to be talking about Jerome Powell in the Fed meeting this week. Zillow has their newest touring agreement that's state specific. We've got some comments from the Minneapolis Fed. But I want to start with the Fed meeting, Byron and Lisa, because expected, as they did, they kept the federal funds rate where it was. We had some comments afterwards. The market reacted pretty favorably. What kind of mortgage rates are you guys seeing after the Fed meeting? I mean, we saw a 6.0 quoted locally. I don't know if you guys saw the same thing. It was like a perfect scenario, like TPI, all that.
Yeah, we've seen perfect scenario get close to that. There's this actually program in Connecticut. It's called CHFA, and it's connected with this this lowering of the rate if you have student loan debt. Today's rate on CHFA is 4.875. You have to have student loan debt, and you got to qualify. But the qualifications of CHFA can go up. Can be $100,000. And income and all this kind of stuff, but 4.875. Yesterday it was 5. So that's a special category, like Tom's talking about. Hey, a perfect scenario, you can get down to 6. But Mortgage News Daily yesterday on Thursday was 6.62. It'll be under 6.5 after we're done recording here today. We record on Friday mornings. You've got a 10-year that plummeted today. We're going to get into the jobs report. A 10-year that plummeted down to 3.8 range right now. There's a couple other factors that are impacting the 30-year fix we can get into. It's not just the Fed meeting. The expectations was the Fed would do nothing. That's what they did. But there's a lot of other factors that are going on. Some uncertainty globally, obviously, is impacting the rates as well. You have a lot of people that have pushed into, safe investments. Which has opened the door for the rate to be lower with some of the uncertainty going on in the Middle East this past week. And then you've got this jobs report. So just a combination. The market's down big off of the jobs report too. So, the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, it was, I think, a lot softer than most people expected. So highlights to it, unemployment hit 4.3 for the month of June, which has been, I think, the highest since, October 2021? I don't have it open in front of me, but highest that we've been in several years. It's a steady creep up, right? If we look at where we were 12 months ago,
you had that right, October 21.
Okay, yeah. And then so if you look at the last 4 months, each one has been a steady creep up. So we went 3.8, 3.9, 4%, 4.1, and then up to 4.3% this morning. So definitely showing signs of weakening in the job market. Industries that had growth were still pretty much the same as kind of what we've been seeing for the past couple of months. But I think a lot of speculation that has the Fed waited too long to start lowering rates? So I would love to get both of your thoughts on, because I've got mine. So your thoughts, did they wait too long?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I mean, Minnesota Fed says they've go ahead. Yeah, I'll jump in. Minnesota Fed says they've waited too long. I've talked about this for a while where, Wall Street Journal reported this a year ago. There was a WaPo op-ed this week right before the Fed meeting that said, you can start lowering. Note to Fed, it's okay to cut interest rates now, because if you take shelter out, right now the way the Fed calculates inflation, we're at 2.5% because they use the PCE. A lot of the market uses the CPI, and CPI I think was at 2.6 on the last reading. If you take shelter out, the way we calculate shelter, which is owner's equivalent rent, which is a made up phony baloney survey. If all of the other civilized world, developed nations don't use owner's equivalent rent. If you pull that out, we'd be at 2 or lower, and we've been there for almost a year on this inflation gauge that they're trying to hit. And the reason why the Fed might have waited too long, just like they waited way too long to start increasing the rate when they were printing all that money, they might be making the same mistake here. The reason we've waited too long is they have a dual mandate: get the inflation down, which if you calculate the way everybody else is doing it, you're already there. And number 2, maximize employment. And Jerome Powell brought up the dual mandate when he was speaking on Wednesday. And it was the first time he's really emphasized it as much as he did in this press conference in the preceding 2 or 3 press conferences. Why is he making this such a bold statement? Because if unemployment starts to really heat up, he's going to have to react bigger than just 0.25% in September. It's likely to be 0.5 point because he can't let unemployment get out of control. There's going to be a ton of pressure right now coming from Washington saying, we're at 4.3. I want to run here, on low unemployment, ridiculously low unemployment. Now we're at the highest point since October 21. That's not good. And the mandate from Congress is keep people employed. Don't let unemployment get out of control. So just based on these numbers today, I think he's waited too long.
Tom, what's your take?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, the Fed has a history of waiting too long and then micromanaging things, and like they just can't get the timing right. If you look at how often they were hiking rates, people said let it play out a little bit. The 50 basis point cut you mentioned, Byron, I mean, Jerome Powell said specifically, he was asked about this. I don't want to be specific about what we're going to do, but that's not something we're thinking about right now, at least for September. So maybe he will have to, amend those comments. He did mention the dual mandate. They also talked about at the press conference, which I always think the comments are the most important thing, that they have that dual mandate, but that they're signaling that we're going to see a September cut, which is good, but this should have probably happened already. And, these are all lagged numbers, right? We're in a business where we talk about lead indicators constantly. Like, we're getting the numbers after the fact. So if it's 4.3, it's probably a little bit higher. You talked about part-time employment on one of our previous episodes, which is a factor there. I agree with you. And, if you talk about the election, right? I mean, he said we're apolitical. This isn't a political decision, but I don't totally agree with that.
Tom, let me just give you the numbers. We always like to reference the CME group, which does the probabilities. And they've been at 100% probability now for the last number of weeks on 100% chance of a rate cut, an easing of the rate in the September meeting, which is still 47 days away. So a lot can change between now and then. Well, yesterday, 0.5 point. So it's 100% that they're going to cut, but how much are they going to cut? Yesterday, on Thursday morning, when I did the hot sheet, it was 13% chance that it would be 0.5 point cut. And it was 87% chance that it'd be a quarter cut. Today, after this jobs report, it's a 63% chance, 63.5, that it's 0.5 point, according to CME Group, and a 36.5% chance that it's only a quarter. So that's a big swing in one day off of that's. I'm telling you, this jobs report is significant. It's going to amp up pressure politically to make a move. There's going to be pressure from all angles. Obviously, there's business pressure. We're in an interest rate sensitive business. We want the rates to be more lucrative for home buyers. There have been home buyers that have been punished for a couple of years now in terms of affordability. So we want that to support our customers. Got it. There's commercial buildings that, office buildings that are coming up due on refinancing, and they don't want to walk. Maybe they don't want to walk away from the key. The bank doesn't want to hold the keys. You got a problem over there. You got mergers and acquisitions that have been stopped, obviously, by this DOJ, but also stopped, in just business sense of trying to make, sense of the finances. Okay. And now you've got the political pressure that's going to mount up on the Fed because of unemployment creeping up. So the number looking like 0.5 point in September, you could see, and then like I mentioned before, you do have uncertainty in the Middle East. When you have this uncertainty, they usually rush to a safe asset, U.S. Treasuries. That's where you're seeing, kind of a lot of momentum all at once here for a rate that could get to the low sixes. I mean, it certainly could reflect what we saw in Q4 last year when we went from 8 down to 6.6, which is roughly where we're at right now, with belief that we'd have a Q1 drop. Didn't get it. Inflation heated up. Now we have this very strong belief, stronger than in Q1. And Powell said this is better quality data than we had in Q4 last year. So when he was asked about momentum, he said the data that we're getting right now is of better quality than Q4 last year. So it gives them more confidence that if it continues to trend this direction next 45 days, that we could see a move in September. He didn't guarantee a move. He certainly didn't, set himself up for a disaster because things can change. But their confidence is stronger than when the markets had that momentum in Q4 of last year.
So a lot of the other talk kind of shaking out around this is that we might be heading towards recession. What do you guys think?
I think it's a very strong possibility in the sense that if we can't figure affordability out for people, I think there's a chance there, because not just everyday people, the businesses feel it, because if everyday people aren't spending, the businesses are feeling it. Then they start laying off. You really got to look at those construction numbers because they impact so many different supporting businesses. If construction really starts laying off, that can have a cascading impact, and you could really see unemployment go up. You see unemployment go up over 5, I could see a little recession happen. And the reason why I say this, it's more, I guess, more anecdotal, where you just don't hear a lot of people saying this economy is really working for me. That, man, I'm really in a great spot. I'm in a position of strength with my finances and my savings. Credit card debt is going up, and it's costly debt that's going up. So, unless we can find that soft landing that they've been clamoring for 2 years, and we can get the rates lower sooner, I definitely see a recession happening. Probably, what's the inauguration? January 22nd, 2025, Lisa. That'd be my prediction for big recession talk.
Okay. So you're kind of probably spot on. There's keep laughing. There's a rule called the SAHM rule. If anybody's curious about it, you can Google SAHM. And that rule tends to say that when unemployment goes up on a 3-month average by 0.5%, that it is the indicator that a recession is imminent. Not that we're in one, but that we have to be acutely aware of what's beginning to come. And if you look at our past 3 months, we are tipping right into that 0.5% increase over the past 3 months. So just some really interesting stuff to look at.
Where'd you pull that from? The SAM rule? It's in this. Yeah, it's in this AP article with the. Yeah, I see it. The so-called SAM rule.
Yep. It's interesting. So Sam herself kind of spoke out about it and said that she had some interesting takes, right? That despite the fact that the unemployment numbers are hitting there, that there are some factors that were created during COVID that might be making the unemployment data noisier than it should be. And she pointed to a recent surge into the workforce due to the ability to remote work. So folks with disabilities who hadn't been able to necessarily work outside of the home in the past, who now are entering the workforce, who often face higher unemployment rates early on once they start entering the workforce, and some other stuff. So it's interesting if anyone's curious to go kind of take a deep dive into it. But it is just fascinating to look at the fact that that has historically, and it goes back, you can look at how the SAM rule has played out since the early 60s and kind of see that every time that trend has hit there, it has almost always resulted in a recession not long after.
There's some data out there. I just dropped this in the Slack channel we can put the chart up. There's Y charts. They calculate all this data. They show the likelihood or the probability of a recession. And the past couple months, it was as low as maybe around 50%, and it's been creeping up slowly to a 55.83% chance. It was obviously a lot higher last year at like 67%. But I mean, all that, these are all factors here. Like there's enough modeling out there that people can kind of start to look at these things. So that's fascinating data, Lisa, and it looks like a lot of people are picking up on it.
I am not rooting for recession. I don't want recession.
I don't think anybody is, right?
I don't like recession because they can get bad. And a lot of people can lose their jobs, and I don't want to see that. It will obviously lower the rates quite a bit. You would see some significant moves by the Fed to get out of said recession, and you'd have a 30-year. But that being said, how many people got to lose their jobs for you to have a 30-year fix that you feel good about?
Right. And another interesting question, kind of tying in, what are you guys seeing in markets for short sales and foreclosure filings? Have you started?
Nothing in Connecticut because we have no
okay.
inventory.
I've got 2 short sales going right now where we're representing sellers, and we've had to file for short sales because we can't get it to close for what the seller owes.
Where I'm more curious to watch on those numbers is the Southeast. I mean, Florida is a dead zone inventory is just racking up DOM. And I know I talked to some Florida agents like, it's not that bad. No, I'm just looking at the data. It's that bad. And I'm in Southwest Florida. I'm not in there today, of course, but I live in Southwest Florida. I know what's going on. I know how many signs are going up. I know how many homes are going up in these communities, and it's happening fast down there. So it's gonna take place. It's gonna take shape there, is my point.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to start to kind of shake out everywhere. We also received, back in the day, we had some accounts to do BPOs and to handle some bank-owned properties. And this week, 2 of those vendors reached back out to us to ask us if we'd be willing to start taking on some of that BPO work and if we were still open to handling the listing of bank-owned properties. So it was fascinating to get that outreach this week.
I did an interview with Stacy Sutter. Stacy's the CEO of Summit VA, and we were talking about his time as an REO broker in Houston. And I asked him the question. I said, "Do you think, there's going to be any type of housing? It doesn't seem like we would have any type of repeat of 2008." This is how I framed the question, and he said and what his words were, there will be a foreclosure boom coming in the next year or two. And I'm paraphrasing. You go back to the interview and see exactly what he said. But he said, yes, a foreclosure boom is coming. And he thinks that this time, like last time the foreclosure boom, was more under 500,000, just like all those everyday working Americans got completely wiped out. His prediction from this one is like 500,000 to like 900,000. You're going to see like these more expensive homes where it's like middle-class America went up on a higher price point in the last 3 or 4 years, or prices rose. You're going to see a lot in that range. I think there's going to be, certain local markets that are impacted more if he's right. I'm not even saying that he's going to be right. 40% of Americans don't have a mortgage, 80% are under 5% right now. So it'd be shocking to me that somebody would, let themselves get to that situation with the kind of head start everybody has. That being said, when you look at Florida, you can have all the equity in the world. You put your house on the market and you keep lowering the price, and it is just not moving.
Right.
It can catch up quickly. It doesn't take more than 6 months to kind of catch up with people sometimes.
Well, and those that are living paycheck to paycheck, it could be much quicker than 6 months, right? Like that. Right. I don't know. Like I said, for me, it's fascinating to see that those vendors both reached out in the same week, because I think that they're probably seeing some early signs and obviously starting to prepare their operation to start to deal with it. So to me, that was probably one of the bigger red flags that I've seen over the past couple of months.
Well, you look at some of the lead data, and Byron, I think you said it. Like agents always say, like, "Oh, it's not that bad." That's because you're running a good business, right? Like you can still transact in these kind of markets, but the knowledge brokers also they get the data.
Yeah.
So you look at some of the lead indicators that I'm seeing in our market. Closed sales are down 3.7%, right? So I mean that tells me there's less home selling than last year. I don't know what it's like where you are. Showings are down 13%. Inventory's up 23.2%. So these are all indicators that demand is waning. I mean, that's very clear. Days on markets remained about the same. Pending sales are down 0.8%. So these are things you got to look at to understand your market so you can advise people properly because, yeah, you know how to do deals. Like I imagine the agents you're talking to, Byron, have viable businesses. At the same time, it doesn't mean the market's doing great just because you're selling a lot of real estate.
Absolutely. And I mean, you want to be able to say, hey, here's where the market is realistically. One thing that drives me nuts is when agents always want to put out glass half full information. They only want to spin it glass half full. You know, that was a problem a lot of people got into in January, like the year of the fives, and we're in August and nobody's gotten a 5 on their interest rate. And so when you put out this type of information, you give a false premise. Give the facts. Hey, here's the struggles that are happening in our market right now. Okay, here are the concerns I have about Tom's word. Here are the concerns I have. Can I share a concern with you? Here's the concerns I have about the overall market. But here's what we're doing to get in front of it. If I can show you exactly how to get your home in position to sell in the next 30 days right now, will you consider putting it at my price as opposed to what yesterday's market was? You know, conversations like that are what the knowledge brokers are having because they're giving a fair depiction of what the market is actually doing. So, but the recession stuff is worrisome. I wish the Fed would have obviously done something this week to get ahead of that. I gotta believe, Lisa, the one thing that I guess gives me a little pause is I gotta believe the Fed knew that we were going to hit 4.3 on Friday. You know, they get information early, right?
Yeah,
They definitely knew
I
that.
would hope so.
So you would think they made this decision knowing unemployment's going to come in high and they're going to ride out the next 45 plus days here before they're, you know, able to make another decision. But all right, let's what are we moving to next here, Tom? I think we've wrapped up with the Fed there.
Yeah, so I don't know about you guys. I got an email yesterday from somebody, our Zillow success advisor, saying, "Hey, we got some state-specific touring agreements right now, and no heads up. There's a way to opt in. This went from the general touring agreement they were going to roll out to the state-specific one. I know Byron had some great comments he wanted to react to from Rich Barton at Inman as well. And, you know,
I was not at Inman. I saw some
you
quotes.
heard about it, right? Well, I didn't say you were there. I said it was from Inman. And, you know, this touring agreement, I mean, you know, it affects my state. I think, Lisa, it affects one of your two. There's not one in Connecticut. And, you know, the challenge I have with this is that was yesterday. What today's August 2nd. So this is August 1st. I get this email, end of business, right? And we're in the middle of like getting ready to implement everything that we need to do for the NAR settlement. We've got scripts, we've got dialogues, we've got the new contracts from Pennsylvania. We're training on all this stuff. And then Zillow comes in and they say, hey, here's your touring agreement, by the way. Now, we do have the ability to opt in or not, from what I understand from the email that I received, because I didn't get to talk to a human being on this. My challenge with this is that we've got to deal with the state. Everyone's got their brokerage policies they're dealing with. And then you got Zillow coming in and saying, here's what we're going to do. And Byron, you said this repeatedly. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing when it comes to this settlement. And everyone's got an opinion. And there's going to be some people that are wrong, some people that are right. And I think people are too quick to say, here's the right path here, instead of gathering information, although August 17th is 15 days away at this point. So I'm not too keen on this, but I want to get your reaction.
There's 24 states where premier agents can use a state-specific touring agreement from Zillow. We'll link up the article on nowbam.com in the show notes. The 24 states are Arizona, California, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Massachusetts, Maryland, Minnesota, Missouri, North Carolina, New Jersey, New York, Nevada, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Virginia, Washington, Wisconsin. Okay, so about half the states are able to use. So now Zillow's words here. According to the NAR settlement, agents must have a signed agreement with the potential buyer before a home tour. Leverage Zillow's seamlessly integrated touring agreement and ensure a smooth path to the first tour. So when I hear leverage, it's almost like a suggestion. Hey, leverage this, use this, take this tool, if you will. When you go down on Zillow's Premier Agent page, and we can link that up too. It's linked in the article actually. The first bullet of really explaining this integrated experience, which is a pilot, new and effortless process. Let Zillow take care of the documentation, enabling you to focus on impressing buyers and showcasing your unique value with each connection. So I'll ask the broker on the pod.
Yeah.
I'll go to Lisa. Let Zillow take care of the documentation, broker Lisa. You don't need to worry about that anymore. Your reaction.
Well, that part of it, I have strong feelings about. I think, again, I was having this conversation with somebody last night on the phone, and I was like, from a compliance perspective, Zillow's never going to be compliant enough or help me be compliant enough. I think as an industry, we're still shaking out who's even going to manage this from the compliance side, right? So, I don't think Zillow should have any part in it. That's what I'm going to say straight up. I think that it's a little bit misleading. I think it's going to create a false sense of security for some folks, without a doubt. That part I disagree with. The part that I find maybe okay, and I said this when the touring agreement first came out, is I think that there's some benefits, right? And the initial reactions that I heard is, oh my God, there's no compensation discussed in this. Agents are working for free. They expect us just to be door openers. And I'm not going to get into the state specific. Does the contract need to spell out compensation? That I'm going to leave to each individual to determine. I'm going to leave it to their state to determine. But my pushback here is, you've all worked for free when you worked with a Zillow lead before. Like,
you don't have to use the word Zillow. You can just say buyer lead.
Everyone has worked. Yeah, any buyer.
Right.
You've all worked. Free's the wrong word. You've all worked. Maybe not you all, but the vast majority of agents in almost every market has worked non-exclusively on the vast majority of their buyer leads.
Without a doubt. And so, where I'm going to separate is, I don't have an issue with the verbiage that's being put out in the touring agreement at high level. Like I said, not going to get into whether it actually meets state compliance and whether Zillow, whatever, any of that. I have no issue with what they're trying to accomplish to create a frictionless experience for the consumer. And I do believe that those agents who are able to find a way to continue to create a frictionless experience will win. I've said that for a long time. I continue to believe it. I, however, have strong feelings about whether Zillow should be managing the compliance aspect of things. And that's where I disagree strongly.
So in their FAQ, does the touring agreement, the Zillow touring agreement, meet my state's regulatory needs? On August 1st, Zillow made touring agreements available for use in multiple states, 24 that we noted. We drafted these agreements to reflect differences in state regulations with state-specific compliance in mind. When possible, we've proactively shared the forms with the state regulators and incorporated their feedback. If you have questions or concerns about the specific requirements in your state or in any particular transaction, consult your broker, legal counsel, or state regulator. So
when possible, right? First, so they don't guarantee that they've actually consulted with state folks. B,
right.
Do many states actually have their insert four-letter word together to know what they actually need? Like, think back to how many states don't even have regular forms yet. How can anybody say that any of these forms are going to be compliant when we don't even have basic forms that are compliant from most states?
Here's my take on this. I've already gotten a bunch of heat by saying, when I looked at Zillow's touring agreement the first time it came out, when they were piloting it, and they're not piloting it in my market. But when I first saw it, I said, I don't have a big problem with the touring agreement. It's another tool to have the conversation about the different levels of working with a buyer. These non-exclusive levels, like what a touring agreement. A lot of agents are like, that's ridiculous. I would never do a touring agreement. Well, a touring agreement to me is one step beyond, again, what most agents have done when they just start showing homes. And you ask an agent, you're like, hey, do you have a right to rep sign? Because Connecticut's always been a right to rep state. No, we're good. We're tight. I got a real good relationship. I got a great relationship going with this buyer. They're not going anywhere. They're tied to me. Well, without a signature in place on a exclusive right to rep, you're working non-exclusively. The touring agreement is, to me, like the middle ground between nothing signed and exclusivity signed. Maybe a non-exclusive with your state compliance and all that kind of stuff is going to be, a little bit, another step closer, but that's still not exclusive. Okay. It's just a fancier way of calling this home tour agreement. So I don't have a big problem with the home tour agreement. Okay. Now where Zillow does have to get a little bit careful here, and this is why this is a pilot program, I would imagine, is because you're going to really start to ruffle some feathers across different states. Hey, are you a broker here? Are you acting as a broker? I mean, are these agents now working for two brokers? They really thought you had the broker license for the referral aspect of it. Now you're kind of impacting, really what they do, and that's where brokers are going to have an issue. It's like, hey, this is my job. My license is on the line. The way they're transacting. And that's where they're gonna get a lot of pushback on that. In just the essence of the form itself, the home touring, I don't have a big problem with the form. I know agents do, but again, you're gonna have to interview for the position, and if you've never met somebody and you haven't gone on that interview, why would they sign exclusively? I think even some clients are gonna say, hey, I don't even want to sign exclusively for this one property for 3 days. I want to get to know you before I do that. And they're going to have their guard up, and this is the opportunity to go ahead and win the business. So that's kind of where I'm at on that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Byron. And I think that the problem here, to what you said, is the broker part of this, because we're interesting because I think we've got our team, and then our family owns the brokerage. And I'm hearing from other agents like, oh, this company's doing this company's doing that. And nobody knows what the hell they're doing. And these are just opinions right now, right? My attorney said this to me. He said, I don't even think the people that won the lawsuit know what to do, which I tend to agree with in terms of like Michael Ketchmark. He's like, I don't think he knows what to do. He's just happy he got paid. So you've got, Pennsylvania is a little different. They actually have a non-exclusive buyer agency agreement they've rolled out. So they have that as one of the standard forms. They made 6 standard form changes. That was one of them. So you're going to see more of that. And one thing I will give Zillow credit for is that it's available to like Premier Agent Partners and Flex Partners, the state specific. It's up to us whether or not we roll that out to the clients, because this could really screw up the process. Imagine if Lisa's coached her team one way, and then Zillow says, hey, we're going to send the Massachusetts agreement out anyway. Well, that might screw the whole thing up. And that's where some coordination here for Zillow's partners would have made a lot of sense, instead of, hey, we're doing this. Now, I'd imagine they're probably doing this to cover their butt as well.
What is interesting, I will say, Zillow, I know a bunch of our friends over at Zillow do listen to the pod, that this coming out in a Zillow press release, obviously we've written an article on BAM about it. I think at this point, Inman's written an article about it. There's been articles written throughout the industry, and talking to leaders in those 24 states, I haven't found one that's gotten a conversation about it. So, the partners with Zillow, the agents, the team leaders, the brokers that are partnered with Zillow, this is something that we beat up Realtor.com about when they rolled out a buyer advocacy campaign version 1. I've liked version 2 and 3, but not going into their partners and having more conversation about it up front. not having conversations with your partners before you do things like this that are integral to their business operations is a huge miss. And it could backfire. And I would suggest, turning the wagon around pretty quickly here and having those conversations. Rich Barton was at, Rich, you're welcome on the pod anytime. We've had Damian Eales. We'd love to have you, Rich. Rich Barton, CEO of Zillow, made some comments at Inman in Las Vegas this past week. We're moving beyond the Portal 1.0 experience. So Zillow 2.0, or the Zillow Super App, as they typically refer to it, is a vision where everything is in one place. Okay, this is a vision that brokers have had about their business for decades. That's one of the things, like Bill Ravis just celebrated 50 years. He always talks about, you can get a mortgage here, you can get an insurance here, you can get, like having all these things under one umbrella. Zillow's envisioning that for the super app nationally, where you can get the Zillow home loan. You can, now get forms. You can sign forms with Dotloop. You can do showings with Showing Time, really do everything all in one place. And so he speaks to that. He talks about that on quarterly financial calls, and he talks about it, when he does get up on stage, and he continued to deliver that message. I didn't really see anything else, but it's time to accelerate past the Portal 1.0 experience, begin bringing order to a complicated multi-party, multi-partner, multi-stage transaction process by investing in tech, partnering with competitors, and staying in tune with what consumers and agents need to have a positive, even joyful experience. And so they think they can do that. Showing Time has been big success for them. He says Follow Up Boss, Listing Showcase, Dotloop, Arroyo, and others to put together these products into one place, and they've been working on it for quite some time. So,
either of you guys had a partner in business ever?
I have a partner with BAM, the broke agent.
So, right, okay. So you and Eric,
it says
great
that on
example.
It says that on the operating agreement. Byron Lazine and the broke agent. It says Eric Simon.
So when you guys make decisions, do you talk about it together, or do you just roll stuff out and let him read about it on a press conference or a press release?
We talk about it together. I mean, obviously it's a major decision. He does not run by his final edits on broke agent posts or things like that. The way our agreement is, I mean, I've shared it in the past publicly. He has final edit on content, and I have final decision on business. So we have a clear understanding on, who's going to make a final decision in a stalemate, because when you have two partners, you can get into a situation where you have stalemates. I never recommend a partnership where somebody doesn't have final say. So you need to separate those decisions. And so in a partnership with Zillow would have final say, but
Yes.
A conversation is important. I think that's where you're going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, they talk about partnership, and this isn't about the reps or anyone else, because it's not coming from our success reps. The point is the word partner. You defined the word agent a couple of weeks ago, and it was all over the place on BAM. And I think you really got to look at what these things mean before you start saying them all the time, because I would argue the three of us are partners on this pod. We always talk about what we're going to cover. We have a direction we're going to go, right? I mean, we're doing this together, and it's different than a Zillow agreement or the BAM partnership, but like emotional intelligence and just having conversations with people, even if they sent a survey out or you talked about it on your call with your rep, that would have gone a long way here. And I've got my opinions on it, but I'd love to see the partnership be treated more like a partnership.
Two of the three partners on this pod have great internet today. And one of
Thank you. I'll see you guys later. Great episode.
Lisa, anything else on Zillow?
No, I think that covers it.
I guarantee Lisa's going to get a call after this pod. Lisa, I've been meaning to circle back with you on this, how it impacts you in Massachusetts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's fascinating, right? Because I guess, well, if you look at it, I've got like 2 reps. And interestingly, I spoke to my flex rep yesterday. I was on FaceTime with him as I was sorting out some, my dashboards got really messy with some stuff. And I was on FaceTime with him like an hour before the email hit, and he didn't mention it at all. So,
What I'll leave knowledge brokers with is the Zillow brand is incredibly strong and powerful in the market, and that's not wavering. That's gonna
no.
continue. So don't, when Zillow topics come up like this, I'd know everything about them. I'd know how to, use the partner being the word, partnership opportunities to your advantage,
Yep.
if they're available. And I'd certainly know how to, have a discussion with consumers around Zillow, because most of the people that, whether you're working with them on the buy side or you're working with them to get their home ready to market and list for sale, they're familiar with the Zillow app, and maybe unfortunately more familiar with what the Zillow app looks like today, the beginning of this super app experience that they're building, than you are. And
Oh,
that's
without a doubt.
that's a mistake. If
Yeah.
you're a knowledge broker who's like, I don't want to, send anybody, X fee, or I don't want to buy leads, whatever the case may be. And you're not partnered with Zillow. Maybe you're not even using Showing Time, or you're not using Follow Up Boss, or you're not using Dotloop,
Yes.
whatever your case may be. Not at the very least knowing what moves they're making, and knowing the experience that 70+% of your customers are having inside the app. They're going to that app, they're downloading that app, they're going to that website. Be real polished on that. I'll absolutely leave that with knowledge brokers. Be extremely knowledgeable on what's going on with the most powerful brand in America when it comes to resi.
Well, and what I'll also add to that is I think where agents sometimes miss, and where I think I maybe alluded to it when we were talking about the touring agreement, is consumers go to Zillow because it's easy, right? And they go to Zillow, they start their home search there because they want a different experience than the consumer who's going to take the time to research the agent and reach out to a friend or family member and ask for referrals. And it speaks to everything that you just said. Consumers go to Zillow because they want fast, they want frictionless, they want immediate response, and they want the service without having to jump through a whole bunch of hoops, right? And I think that oftentimes agents put themselves in the front and center of that, but you've got to remember why the consumer went to where they went to start their search, and how it impacts their journey, and how it impacts the experience that as an agent you need to create for each individual consumer. And then also, just to go back, I don't blame my rep for not reaching out to me. I know that oftentimes they're not even being notified until I'm notified. So shout out to my rep. I know you listen, and I don't blame you for not mentioning it on our FaceTime.
Oh, wow. Look at that disclaimer from Lisa Chinatti.
The second face has revealed itself very clearly. There it is.
That's my online face. Like I said, I give shit, but I also, I understand where their limits are, and I'm sometimes hard on them, and I, whatever. I know they're just the messengers.
Like I gave credit to eXp Realty on the buyer broker kit that they open sourced. And then the states that have at least published things, whether you disagree with their forms or not, they're at least not waiting till the very last minute. I see that in other states. Zillow has open sourced something here that you may hate the form. You may hate the fact that they're choosing 24 states and they're going to pilot it in, all of that kind of thing. But this is another data point to say, is this a good business model? Is it not? Let's test it. Let's figure it out. Let's learn together. So those that have open source, where they're thinking the direction might be the useful tools that agents could use, I think the more of that, ultimately, the better. And we can debate in these types of forums and others, in-person forums like BAM Mania, for example, octoberbammania.com. We could debate all this stuff and see what makes the most sense. Hopefully by October, we've got, a better grasp of what makes sense. Tom, what do you want to finish with before your internet blows up over there in the shore of Jersey?
I blame my daughters. So Well, you're right. It's not the reps. I mean, this is just how Zillow does things. I don't think it's going to change, to be very honest with you. I mean, this stuff rolls out, and that's how they get it. I'm pretty pro Zillow. We're all partners with Zillow. It's not like it's a bad relationship. I just, as leaders in the industry, imagine if you did this to your team. I think that's really the point, is that like they wouldn't be happy about it. So I do like that we're going to talk about this at BAM Mania, and I also like that they're making a statement of some sort, because there's some states that, Byron, did you even get forms from Connecticut yet? Did they finally come out? I know that was something you were a little concerned about.
They have this broker to broker form of where you can pay broker to broker, but no, I don't have the listing or buyer agreement. No.
Well, I mean,
Sorry
that's a state, right? Like, I mean, I think that's a problem. And I mean, you got 2 weeks left, and it's a state that doesn't have their stuff together yet. So making a statement and putting something out there, I mean, yeah, sure, it's going to be wrong. I think, like Leo said on your interview, they're willing to revise it. There's going to be version 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. So you're going to have to be ready to adjust to these next couple months here, because, like we said at the beginning, nobody really knows what's going on here.
Yeah, Las Vegas is out. Florida just came out earlier this week. We have an article on both on nowbam.com, and you can actually download those forms. And yeah, everybody's is different right now. Interestingly, was it Florida or Vegas where it just says final across it? So one of them rolled it out, and they're like, this is final, which I don't know, find that hard to believe. The minute they get some type of legally saying, no, don't make that final, they'll change it. All right, look, I think we'll wrap here. Good place to wrap the pod. I got to jump. I'm sure Lisa's got to jump. Tom's probably jumping in the Atlantic, but
not yet. I have KPIs to hit today, like any other business person. Rolled out my August plan. I got to hit some numbers, Byron.
All right, guys. Good seeing you. See you soon. We know that in 2024, your business operations will be more important than ever. Once I figured this out, my business was able to scale and take off. See, generating leads is one thing, but getting that deal across the finish line while keeping everyone happy is another story. Enter Mosaic, everything you need once a lead becomes a client. Mosaic picks up where CRMs leave off to streamline the client experience and maximize your productivity. It's the operating platform that gives agents and teams everything they need to stay organized and proactive throughout the entire transaction process and beyond. Transaction management, forms, AI-powered collaborative search, client retention capabilities, and advanced analytics for your business. In other words, you can use Mosaic to create a powerful flywheel for your business. It will help you close every deal, boost your profitability, and generate more repeat and referral business. If you need a better way to run your business, check out the link below and learn how Mosaic can help you today. At BAMX, we listen to what real estate professionals want and need. That's why our platform is filled with sought-after courses, content, and tactical assets for your business. And that's why we launched BAMX in a box with templates and scripts done for you, delivered each Friday. The best part? It's not coming from panel pontificators who bought their followers and don't sell any real estate. It's coming from top agents, team leaders, and content creators in the industry. It's education that actually shows you how to do what you need in today's market. And now it includes editable templates and scripts so you can easily deliver that knowledge to your database. Every day, we continue to add more content into BAMX, into our private Facebook community, content that works, content that our members have exclusive access to daily. Do not wait any longer. Use code KNOWLEDGEBROKERS and join the thousands of agents taking their business to the next level today. Use Knowledge Brokers for 10% off. See you in BAMX.